agenda for the meeting of council held on September the 15th, 2020 be adopted as presented.
Any objections? Aucune objection? Carried, adopté. On procède avec délégation et pétition, with delegation and petition. C'est un grand plaisir d'avoir parmi nous M. Patrice Courtney, notre commissaire d'intégrité pour la municipalité de Nipissing West. Welcome, Mr. Courtney, to our virtual meeting. It's a great pleasure to have you amongst us and for you to do the presentation to council pertaining to the annual report. Donc, bienvenue.
Merci à tous pour m'avoir dans vos, j'imagine, dans vos salons, dans vos bureaux. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm guessing that every member has received a copy of my annual report. The annual report, though it's dated sometime in March of this year, was emailed to everyone at the end of July. And I don't propose to read my report. I would have loved to be in West Nipissing to read my report in person to you last March, but things have evolved since March 15th last for everyone in the province and everyone across the world. And this is why we're doing this by Zoom. What I am prepared to do, however, is if you can refer to my report, more particularly at page 3, I'd like to go through why it is your municipality has appointed me as your commissioner to take a look at any complaints that could be formulated by whether it be members of the public or any one of your members sitting on the council. You have to remember that my office was appointed to apply the code of conduct for members of council and the code of conduct for members of any other local boards that you may have. And I'm happy to report that there was no other complaints against any other member of a local board in your municipality. I am to see to the application of any procedures and rules governed by your municipality. I am to apply the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act to the members of your council. And I also request from your members or any local board members any advice that they may want respecting their obligations under this code of conduct of yours that would be applicable to them. I also request from members of council for any advice that they may have regarding procedures or rules that the municipality has, and anything governing your ethical behavior as members of council. I'm also here to educate you, that's at number 7, educate you as to what your obligations are and what a conflict of interest might be for any one of your members. I am to report directly to council on matters related to code of conduct matters and other policies, rules, or procedures related to ethics for council. I am also to report to council on all matters related to the code of conduct for other local boards. And again, I say I don't have to report from the perspective of any other local boards because I haven't received any complaints about any other adjudicative boards that you may have. Number 10 and 11 are very important because it's come up recently and perhaps maybe not as much in my report during that first year, but I know now it will come up for further complaints and procedures. So number 10, I will act, and anyone acting under my instructions must preserve secrecy with respect to all matters that come to my attention. That is to say that I cannot, as your integrity commissioner, provide any detailed information about any detailed complaints regarding a member of council. However, I may be able to report very general aspects of any investigation that I've undertaken to complete, any complaints that have been formulated. Is everyone okay? Everybody hearing me? And I have that power to investigate any complaint that has been formulated, whether it be by a member of the public or a member of your council. I am to investigate those complaints, and my reports are made public. I'm permitted to disclose necessary information related to my findings while maintaining confidentiality. I can also make recommendations to council regarding anything relating to the code of conduct, any breaches, but it's important to know that only you as council are able to sanction any one of your members. So I'm putting emphasis on that today because I've had a couple of questions come up recently after my report from members of the public, including your local newspaper. And I wish to advise that without reading my report, the statistics are in my report. Without naming names, you see that there's 12 or 13 complaints that have been formulated, whether they're formal or informal. Out of those 12 or 13 complaints, I can tell you that 3 come from the public. The rest are amongst members of your council. And I'm going to go further after my report. My report is dated March 2020, but I can indicate that since March, there have been yet another 8 formal complaints that have been brought forward. And out of those 8 complaints, only 2 complaints were brought by the public, meaning that 6 complaints come from the members themselves. That's one member versus another member. Having said that, I'm happy to report that the complaints that were filed in my last reporting year have been dealt with, are either ongoing or were pending a meeting between, and I can advocate a meeting between 2 members for resolution purposes. It's unfortunate that I'm not able to meet in person to have these things dealt with expeditiously, but here we are in this pandemic and we're having to deal with this very informal way of communicating, especially in the dispute resolution world. It's not very comforting to have these meetings via Zoom or telephone conference. I'm happy to report, however, that during my year as a first year integrity commissioner, that things were done properly and were also done, whether it be via email, it could have been done via regular mail service, which was done on a couple of occasions, and telephone conferences were very successful in my year. Having said that, I would like the opportunity to open the floor to any questions that you may have, because those questions might reflect either my findings over the last year or help me in my determining process for the upcoming year or years. As you well know, You've retained my services for a 4-year period, and this is only year 1 of 4. I'm prepared to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. What I'm going to do is I'll do a roundtable according to ward and give everyone the opportunity. Donc, je vais donner l'opportunité à chaque membre du conseil en faisant un tour de table. Je vais commencer avec conseiller Duhaime. Councillor Duhaime, do you have any comments or do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I took the opportunity of reading the report and found it very educational, and I think with that being said, I truly support what you have done, and I think you've done it well. So as far as any other questions, I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
I'm not hearing you, Chris.
How about now?
It's good
Can you
now.
hear me now?
I do.
Okay. So just back to the privacy aspect of IC complaints. Like, I'm a little unclear. I can understand why the general public, they can make complaints and those should be held confidential. I'm a little more unclear on how elected officials can get away with that. And it seems to me, I'm not sure about this, but is the IC complaint process, is that protected from MFIPA, from Freedom of Information requests? Like, it just seems to me like there is a lack of transparency. That's my first question.
Well, it would not be up to me to divulge any information that I have. If you want me to divulge information that I have, you would need to request that information, and then you make it as you want to make it as a council decision. If you want to change the rules, you change the rules, but as they stand now, I'm not privy to give that information.
Okay. Okay. So my next question is around the procedure bylaw. So Section 8 of the procedure bylaw to establish the office of the Integrity Commissioner very much has your reporting. Like every complaint, it interacts with the Chief Administrative Officer. So let me just read 8.1 and 8.4. So 8.1 says, where the Integrity Commissioner has received a complaint regarding a member, he or she, on the earliest date after he or she made a decision and no later than 60 days after receiving the complaint, prepare a file with the Chief Administrative Officer or a report to council regarding their inquiry into the complaint. And then further to that, 8.4, the Integrity Commissioner shall provide a copy of their report filed under Section 8.1 to the complainant, to the member who is subject of the complaint, and to all other members at the same time as filing the report with the Chief Administrative Officer. So I don't think that's the process that we've followed so far, and I like that idea. Can you speak to that?
Yes, I'm bound by paragraph 7, and that's why, or was it paragraph 10 and 11, as reported in my report, the Integrity Commissioner and the municipality having created my office, I'm bound by that secrecy. Now, if I were to report every finding to your municipality as suggested, the costs would be astronomical. But I leave that into your capable hands as a council. But I feel that I don't need to report if the complaint has been, if the report has been given or provided to the member who is informed of that complaint, and the member or the member of the public, whether it be a member of council or a member of public, is aware of my determination. If there's no further things that I can request or that I can recommend, I don't feel that it's a cost that is appropriate for the municipality to have me reporting on all these issues. That would mean I would have to report on the issues that I've determined that I'm not going to investigate either.
Can I just point of clarification, the section that was being read loud by Councillor Chris, was that you made reference to the procedural bylaw? Is it the code of conduct, or is it the agreement of the IC? Can you precise?
Yeah, it's 2019 bylaw 29, established office of, actually it's March 2019, established office of integrity commissioner. It's the bylaw around the integrity commissioner.
Okay, so is it a bylaw that was adopted by the municipality, or are we making reference to sections in the municipal act?
No, it's our bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Did you have further questions, Councillor Chris?
I just have one more question. So obviously, you know, we're a little over budget, just a bit, on the whole integrity commissioner. So I think our budget was supposed to be $2,500, and this year we're at $1,600. I don't know if Mr. Cormier has any suggestions, but obviously at our next budget meeting we're going to need to look at this number, because we don't want to be running 10 times the budgeted estimate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Patrice, did you have any comments pertaining to the last comment of Councillor Chris?
Well, I can tell you with ease that if you were to take my accounts for the last year, I believe it was it 12,000 or 13,000 in total? It was 12,306 in total. And if we were to divide that by 12 or 13 complaints, you're looking at $1,000 per complaint. I've got 3 formal complaints in progress, as well as 8 other complaints that I'm dealing with right now. So if we were to give a round figure, I can tell you that if your budget is $2,500, you're way under budget, and it's certainly something that council has to consider, because I, in my report, had determined that it was most likely that my fees would be lower in the second year because of the educational purposes of the first month of my mandate, but having no educational purposes to further during this period, I note that there's already 8 complaints. 8 complaints times $1,000 per complaint. You're already looking at $8,000 to $10,000.
Sorry, I do have just a couple more quick questions. So in your report on page 7, and I realize this is old, but I just want to make sure. So the 7th complaint, at the time of the writing of the report, it says that complaint remains open and is not being resolved. I assume that complaint 7 from your report is now resolved? Because and these all end March 2019, 2020, right?
And I can't tell you which ones have been filed as completed, but there are some that are completed that were not completed on the date of the report. Yes.
Right. Okay. So and the last thing I have. We have the breakdown by complaint number, which is very handy, and it actually does sort of support what you're saying. You're looking at somewhere, you know, on average $1,000 a complaint. I'm just wondering, next time we have the report, could we have the in the report, the complaint numbers, so they kind of match the two, because the two don't seem to jive exactly. So I'm just wondering if the next time if we could do that.
Well, it probably
That
wouldn't.
is all I have.
Okay. It probably wouldn't be a part of my report, but it is available as every account that I send in to your municipality has those details. So if you want somebody to keep stats on that, that might be an idea, but that's all detailed in the accounts that I do submit.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So I'm going to move on to Councillor Rowley. Do you have any comments or do you have any questions?
Yes, I do have just a quick comment as far as the Integrity Commissioner. I think it's a great tool to have, but at this time, I think it's way overused. This is my comment. Thank you.
Conseil Léo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a short question to Mr. Cormier. Page 4, paragraph 10. It says, "Hi, and all those acting under my instruction will preserve secrecy." Who's under you that we, I mean, is that your stat working for you?
Yes, I have an assistant who's working for me and who has privy to all that information as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dan?
Thank you. Mr. Cormier, there's a couple of, in your report, I think the report would be far better in the sense that if you had the numbers corresponding to you said that you could provide a summary, a brief summary of what it was and the outcome. So I think that if the report read, it would be much easier to read if I was to see, okay, in number 1 was blah, 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 no outcome. Number 2, because I don't, there's no numbers to it, and it becomes like, oh, where are we? What are we doing? Who's doing what and what's doing? So I think it would be easier to read. That would be my first wish on the wish list. The second thing is that evidently we're seeing that this is being used as a political thing to try to embarrass each other. And I think you slightly made that point, but you didn't. You were more polite than what I just said. Do you have any suggestions on how we prevent that?
Well, if you don't have a mediation tool in your municipality, I'm not sure what the process would be.
Okay. Further to this, sorry, continue.
I would always like to see, usually in these disputes, what we like to see is a dispute resolution, whether that be a telephone conversation or a meet and greet. I can tell you that on one occasion, notwithstanding the fact, and that's in my report, I believe, notwithstanding the fact that I found that there was no breach on one of the members of your council, I invited the member of council to meet with one of the members of public to actually spit it out, what you had to say, all in the respect, obviously, of this game. But it's important that if you don't have that process, that members of the public and members of your council have that avenue to make that complaint. And that's why I'm there, to determine whether or not that complaint has any bearing and does it involve an investigation. And that's the hardest part of my job, is to determine whether or not I'm going to embarrass the municipality with an account of a member of the public filing a complaint or a member of your council filing a complaint against another member of your council. That's a hard decision, because I'm cognizant of the fact that your budget does not reflect my usage. I'm cognizant of that. But I don't know what other avenue your municipality has that those complaints could be dealt with on a more informal process.
So that's a good comment, and it follows into another question I was going to ask. So what you basically said, that if you get a complaint, i.e. there's a complaint that there's a breach, and after you've looked at it, you feel that there has not been a breach. However, you do impose a mediation or a I guess you can't call it, it's not mediation because
It's not mediation.
No, it's not mediation. So then you propose something. Once that's done, you're saying that there's not going to be a formal investigation. So that's why you're saying that you do not write a full report, because you say that it'll cost the municipality a lot of money. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So the process is, complaint comes in, you ask for information from the complaint. The complaint comes in, so there you ask the person, the person's on the other side that is getting the complaint. You ask them to basically give a chronological perspective of what went on. And then from there, you attest whether it is breaching the code of conduct. If it doesn't, then you go back to the person that made the complaint and say, this is frivolous, this is not a complaint, bye-bye. Is that the process?
That's the process.
Okay. Okay. But I still want to reiterate the fact that I think it would be much better if next year's report came in with investigation number 1. This is what happened. Because I think we're up to investigation number 21 right now.
I can't even count. I've got 23, but next year will be, I like your idea, whereas it would be easier to read if I had a number against my complaint, yeah.
And then even whether it's an informal or a real, like, I guess the informal ones are the ones that at the beginning people were just submitting and they were not submitting on the proper forms. They were not providing you with the proper information. So you were just basically saying, hey, I can't move forward. You're not within the requirements of that specific, the bylaw that we put into place.
That's right.
Okay, thank
So
you.
next year, my report would say, number 1, the complaint was received, no follow-up was done. Let's go to complaint number 2. Complaint number 2 was followed up with, and this is what I found.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Conseiller Denis? Conseiller Denis?
Yes, thank you. I'm just getting off mute. Thank you, Patrice, for joining us. And I think the cost that we have in the first year is associated with sort of a trial period, and I think councillors are learning what's complainable and what's not, I guess. And I think the cost should go down in future years. But thank you for the good work.
Merci.
Conseiller Lise?
Merci, Patrice, beaucoup pour l'information. Est-ce que tu me comprends bien?
Très bien.
OK. Je regarde à la page 10, le total 12 306, comme tu avais indiqué, mais la réalité là-dedans, il y a 7 464 qui étaient pour la formation. So, what I'm saying for Christopher, to make sure you understand, in page 10, the total was $12,388, but a portion of 7,464 was for the training that we had in April and May. So that leaves us for half of it, which I think it would be very, very nice to see a 0, that nobody had anything to complain, but let's face it. I feel that if you're saying $1,000 for every complaint, means seem very, very, very high, but if it would be dealt with a mediation, sometimes that can cost $400 or $500 an hour and last for a day, or an investigation, it would be a lot higher than that. I think what's happening with the complaint from the public and either one of us sitting around this table at the beginning is because what I have learned, and it's not by the process of complaining, it's listening to counselor using the proper word, which I mean, the code of conduct is can be interpreted in a lot of way. it's very clear that, I mean, if we're careful with the word we use, there's nothing you can do because, and that goes with when we're talking with each other also. So I, for one, would love for sure to make sure that it goes down. If we had booked $2,500, I don't know where we got that number because we knew that was training and you were coming down, and since day when you were upfront with your costs, what you were charging. So, I mean, like I said, I wish it's sad to see that we have to use that method of us sometime to try to get information, because you also provide information. And the way that I see that, and correct me if I'm wrong, when anyone can send a complaint and you look at it, when you say there's an investigation, because there's nature to have an investigation. The fact remains that you have to do a true investigation and make sure that whatever that it confirm with the guideline. And that's what happens sometimes, that takes longer and then it comes back negative, if I can use that word. So like not much to say. Your report is clear. A little bit more information like Councillor Dan and Councillor Fisher provided. I don't see like the bylaw. I for one don't see that. I think the way that it's done right now, I think it's okay. As far as privacy, if we are doing something wrong, I have not an issue that you say it to public, because I can take responsibility for my action. If there's nothing to it, there's enough hardship, and I'm saying it the way it is without putting gas on the fire. So if there's nothing to a complaint, why wanting to know? Because I mean, so there's different way to complain and to play game, and some of us, I guess, and in this world get very good at it. And I mean, $12,000, God, I'm so glad I'm not living in other municipality where they were over $100,000 in fees. So I guess we're far from being good. We're not there yet, and I'm not sure if we're gonna get, but thank you very much. I'm satisfied. And like I said, for me, a matter of saying it, we're protecting the public, but sometimes protecting people make it worse also. Because I mean, if people keep on complaining, and like I said, you will give reason, I'm sure, if when complaint is done and you don't, when you call the person to give you the reason why you were not able to find the other person guilty. And that's a learning curve sometimes also, because like I said, I mean, anyone, like it's like a collective agreement. I mean, everybody can play with any word. It's like a perceived conflict, very, 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 very big. So thank you very much, Patrice. J'apprécie beaucoup ton travail. Puis, merci.
Merci, je prends tes commentaires en note.
Okay, I guess I get the final word. Dernier commentaire. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here. Un grand merci pour être avec nous. Merci pour la présentation. Ça a aidé à clarifier les points, même après avoir lu le document. I just want to emphasize the issue that I don't feel that it's a political abuse issue. I personally see it as an ethical expectation of any elected officials. And if there's opportunities for us to grow and to get better, if we have an independent reviewer, investigator that has no ties to the municipality, performs a professional service independently, I think it's an opportunity through dispute resolution to be able to look at improvement, and that is the objective. If the situation, it's known fact, there was a lot of fear before this was introduced in the Municipal Act as being mandated. There was the fear that there'd be so many frivolous complaints based on dislikes of individuals, but at least we have a mechanism in place. Moi, j'ai seulement un petit commentaire, puis je veux savoir c'était quoi ton opinion, Patrice. C'est, tu as fait référence au nombre de plaintes qui a été soumises par demande Conseil. And I do know that the process involves having a sworn affidavit for it to be considered. Now, initially, we had identified that we didn't want a mechanism that would be costly to members of the public. And that they can come to town hall and make arrangements to get the documentation sworn either by our clerk or the deputy clerk. But when it comes to elected officials, would it not be more conducive that if an elected official makes a complaint against another member, that their sworn affidavit should be done outside or not with, by not accessing our clerk or deputy clerk? Because at the end of the day, members of council work with these people on a daily basis, and you don't want to be putting our own staff in an uncomfortable situation. I just wanted to see what was your opinion on that.
I think it would be prudent not to use your staff in any of these disputes, because like you say, you're putting your staff at risk of having to be involved in something they don't want to be involved in. Okay,
thank you. And just your opinion pertaining to, you know, that this mechanism is being used as a political advantage. Do you define that your role and the mechanism to resolve issues is a political venue that is being taken advantage by our municipality, by elected members?
I don't feel that it's taking advantage of anything. It's a process that you guys have put in place and that is being utilized and not being overly utilized, I might add, notwithstanding the cost consequences of this, if we compare to any other municipality that has a much higher influx of complaints, whether that be complaints between members of council or members of the public versus members of council. I'm not sure. One of the questions that I was asked from a Radio-Canada reporter was, is this something that's normal in these circumstances? And my answer was, well, I don't really know, because this is my first time and I don't have any colleagues of mine who represent municipalities of the same size. So it's hard for me to say if this municipality is using our office or overusing our office compared to other municipalities. That's a hard question to determine.
Okay, thank you. And probably a final comment. As far as transparency, the actual document report that's been presented to us, the Act also states that the publication of the report. So would it be, as far as recommended strategy to publicize this report, to have it posted on our municipal website, that any members of the public, if they wanted to access and read the information that was submitted to us, they would be able to do so?
I think it's important that it be on your website.
Okay, thank you. And in the future, and this is only a process, I've always been under the understanding when there's documentation, let's say, i.e. a report that belongs to council, that the report should be tabled at council for their review, for discussion, adopting a resolution for receipt, and then releasing the report publicly. In this case here, for this time, and I understand it's been COVID and out of the ordinary, the report was submitted to us via email, then it went immediately to the media, and then there was a lot of speculations that was also advertised in our local newspaper. Our local newspaper made reference that we had budgeted $25,000 for the IC and that we had busted that budget, but we never earmarked $25,000 in our budget for the IC. But the next report, should it come to the table to us first, to receive it from you, to discuss it like we're doing it now, and then to release it publicly? I just want to have your opinion.
My opinion is it would have, had COVID not been here, it would have been released that very same night at council, because I would have come in with my report, and I have a copy of these reports for every member of council. So it would have come in, I would have read my report, and it would have been made public at your meetings, if your meetings are public.
OK, thank you. Encore une fois, je te remercie pour être parmi nous. Au moins, on a eu l'opportunité de vidéoconférence. C'est peut-être pas la meilleure façon, mais c'est mieux que pas du tout.
Right.
Et je tiens à te remercier pour les services que tu offres à la municipalité de Nipissing West, aux membres du Conseil ainsi que le public. So thank you for the professional service that you're providing to our municipality of West Nipissing. It's greatly appreciated.
Et ça m'a fait plaisir.
Okay.